I want to welcome you. I have a very special broadcast in store for you today. I have with me a very dear friend of mine, all the way from Moscow, Russia, Pastor Paul Renner. In just a moment, he's going to come on with me, and we're going to begin to go into information about Noah's Ark, the altar of Noah, and some very fascinating things that involve ancient history. There's a prophetic word in this, and I know it's going to greatly help you. So if you would, right now, please repost this, share this somewhere, because I'm telling you there's a now word in this for you today and somebody else. Also, I want to say a very big thank you to those of you who partner with us every single month. I got to tell you, the Spirit of the Lord is really blessing our partners. And one of the things we want to do is be more and more available for you. And if you want to join our partner family, I'd encourage you to do that right now by going to josephz.com. We would just love to welcome you so we could have you be a part of what we're doing, and we will call you regularly. It's one of the things that we take very serious, is calling our partners regularly. And if you want to be a part of our family, please consider going to josephz.com, partnering today. And of course, we love all of our viewers. And again, please repost this, share this everywhere, because this is going to be a very powerful broadcast. I just know it by the Spirit. So here's what we're going to do. I want to show you an opening clip of none other than Pastor Paul and myself standing in Armenia, Eastern Turkey, where the altar of Noah is located. I'm going to show you this clip because we're standing right in front of it in this clip, and we begin to go into what's happening there. And I really appreciate what Pastor Paul begins to tell us in this clip. We were on site just a little while ago, and I know this is going to really bless you. Let's watch this together, and then I'm going to welcome Pastor Paul on set today. Please, if you would, watch this clip, and I'll be right back. This is the altar of Noah.
Yes.
Can you tell us what you know about this and what you experienced?
First of all, this is probably my favorite place to be. I've been a lot of places.
You have.
But I think this is my favorite place, because this is where God said no more flood. This is where God said, go be fruitful and multiply. And if you have a Christian worldview, and I hope you do, then after the creation account, this would be your second cornerstone, the flood and the beginning here. I love it. It's a symbol of God's faithfulness. It's a place of sacrifice. It's the first thing we read about Noah doing
Yes.
after he got out of the ark.
Yes.
Probably he was still living in the ark, maybe even taking pieces from the ark to build a fire.
Yes, I bet.
Imagine that.
Imagine that, taking it from the
pieces
ark.
from the ark to build a fire.
To build a fire right here.
And bringing the clean animals.
Mm-hmm.
So there was only 7 of each clean animal in the ark, meaning it would have been the most expensive sacrifice ever made in human history.
It would have been. It would have been.
And then, of course, living here in the hills, this is in the village down below.
Yeah.
People have been living in this village for 4,000 years.
It might be the oldest city on earth.
Yep.
You made a really good comment about that. You were talking to me about Noah before, during, and even after, like what he had to do.
Had to protect his family, keep his family holy or sanctified, separate from everything that was going on pre-flood.
Pre-flood?
And protect his family during the flood.
During the flood?
And then he had to protect and rebuild after the flood.
Amazing.
And when you're here for a few days, you begin to think about the importance of Noah.
Yes.
And so Noah possibly brought with him books, technology, farming. He brought with him all those technologies that then began the Bronze Age. So when you look at it chronologically, the Bronze Age begins approximately when Noah landed here.
Wow.
And it spreads, the Bronze Age and the technology of the Bronze Age spreads from here on. And of course, there have been newer findings that prove that there were technologies pre-Bronze Age, which is quite interesting.
It is. I like talking about this stuff with you. Pastor Paul is a wealth of knowledge.
But the Bronze Age and the technology spread from this point on, which all points, of course, to the flood and to Noah.
Oh, man. Well, I just want to talk with you about this because
we need to get out of the way. We're doing some drone footage.
This is our very, you told me about this, and I was looking forward to seeing it. So thank you, Pastor Paul, for your time.
This is my favorite spot.
Thank you, sir. Okay, let me look right at you. Here's what I want to say. We were there. It was powerful. And please, if you would, can you all help me welcome Pastor Paul Renner to the set today? Pastor Paul, thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. I'm glad to be
here with you and with your team. Awesome team, great place. It's just good. Thank you.
Oh man, you've been here once before, and we've had a tremendous time having you. And I'll tell you, I've also been to your church in Moscow,
Twice.
Russia. Twice.
You're a bold person.
Well, I'll tell you, you've got a very powerful work going on in Moscow, and I honor you for that. But I want to get into a topic today to kind of go along with what we were just looking at, and that is the time we had in eastern Turkey, Armenia, the mountains of Ararat. And then also, I want to get into another topic once we kind of cover this involving ancient history, and we'll talk about that in a moment.
Okay.
But Pastor Paul, we were in Turkey, and we stood on what many people believe is Noah's Ark. And we are persuaded that way too. And being there in the mountains of Ararat, a lot of people think Noah's Ark is on Ararat. So what is your takeaway when we've been there and some of the things you've seen, Pastor Paul?
Well, first of all, the Bible doesn't say that the ark is on Mount Ararat.
Right.
That's important. Genesis 8:4 says that it landed in the mountains of Ararat. And the mountains of Ararat would be the definition or the word used to explain that entire area.
Oh.
Ararat, meaning in a higher mountain range where we were in the eastern part of Turkey. And so we don't need to be looking for the ark on Mount Ararat.
Right.
Specifically because the Bible doesn't say it's on Mount Ararat, and because Mount Ararat is much younger than the actual flood event.
That's right.
Mount Ararat itself is a volcano which grew later. So if anyone's saying that they found something specifically on Mount Ararat, they're finding something else.
They must be. Well, you showed us this when we were there, because there's layers and layers of lava flow.
Yes.
And the whole thing is a volcano.
You can actually walk along the lava beds. So finding something specifically on Mount Ararat would mean you found something that's much younger than the ark itself. So you need to look for the ark around Mount Ararat or on the mountains of Ararat. And back then, it would have been a very well-known place because that's where civilization spread from.
Wow.
So when people say the mountains of Ararat or where they talk about that area, that's where civilization spread from. This is cool.
This is cool.
This is cool. Okay, so I've been there 3 times.
Wow.
First time I was there with Dad on a filming trip. Next time we were there, Polina didn't go the first trip.
And for those who need to know, this is, when he says dad, we're talking about Rick Renner. Pastor Paul Renner's father is Rick Renner. I just wanted to make that clear.
Yes, and Dad just wrote a book on the world before the flood. And it's probably the most comprehensive book that there is available.
It is.
He did a lot of research.
He sure did.
He probably dedicated more than 2 years of his airport. Huge. It would have included mountains and valleys and lakes and rivers. It was something much bigger than your park. It wasn't just a park. It was or a house with a beautiful land around it.
Right.
It was big.
Yes.
And so that's kind of the first thing you realize. And then when you take it the next step, wait a minute, you mean the ark landed in Eden?
That is wild.
Meaning God started over
Again.
from the same spot that he started the first time?
Come on.
And that's really cool.
It is.
Now, I mean, you kind of got to put these things together.
You do.
It doesn't say it directly.
Well, what was fascinating, Pastor Paul, is when we got there, we stood on the site of the ark. We stood there, and there's just so many sites around it.
Oh, yeah.
That just get our attention. Now, we opened with a video showing you and I standing in front of a rock formation behind us. And that was very moving. So being on Noah's Ark site, we had to go through a small town to get to that site. And you said something profound to me. You said something about the age of that town.
Yeah. So people have been living near the ark site ever since the ark landed there.
Right.
So for approximately 4,000 years, people have been living near the ark.
Yes.
And at different periods, for some people, the ark was obvious. So up until a certain point, there was no question of whether this was the ark or not. And sometimes in history, we lose things. Also in Turkey, I was driving through Turkey once, and me and my wife stopped at the historical site of the city of Troy.
Oh, man.
Troy was entirely lost. For over 2,000 years, no one knew where Troy was. It's mentioned in the Bible, It says that the Apostle Paul visited Troas.
That's right.
And then sometime after that, geographically things changed, economically things changed, and the city was lost, just simply lost. And finally it was grown over, and until about 60 years ago, no one knew where an entire city was. So just as an example, things sometimes get lost. And then they get refound or discovered again.
That's a good point.
And the same thing happened with the ark.
Yeah.
Up until a certain point, everyone knew where the ark was. There was no question about it. You can even read about it when people talk about traveling on the Silk Road. So the ark is not a new discovery.
Which the Silk Road, we stood right on it.
It goes right by
near
the
it.
ark.
I mean, you can almost see the ark from the Silk Road.
Yes. So the ark was rediscovered.
Yes.
And then when you visit the ark spot, and this, you want to talk about the altar stone, but for me, the altar stone is kind of a continuation of the story from the ark.
So powerful.
So the first time we're at the ark, we're busy filming, and it's exciting.
Yes.
You get this sense of amazing excitement. This is the ark,
Right.
I'm touching the ark. I'm walking on the top deck of the ark, and you begin to notice things like you can see there's symmetry in the wall there. You can actually see places where the metal has rusted and corroded over time.
You can.
You can see that there's petrified wood. You can actually see spots where they've drilled in and found animal hair.
That's right.
So you get this amazing awe. And you came to see the ark. So it's all about the ark.
The ark.
And so we were filming near the ark, and of course, it was kind of difficult conditions filming. It's rainy, it's windy, and then you have too much cloud, and then you have too much sun, and so it's kind of difficult. And we're so focused on the ark that just kind of where all of our attention was. And then our local guide there, and one of the people that actually is from that village, he's Kurdish, and the Kurdish people have lived there for a long time, meaning like thousands of years. He says, I want to take you and show you another place.
That's interesting. Wow.
And it wasn't really on our agenda. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like, okay, well, there's something else to see, but isn't the ark all we came to see? And they said, no, there's this rock I want to show you.
Wow.
Well, if you've traveled with Dad a lot, we see a lot of rocks.
That's the joke you guys have.
Yeah, we go look at a lot of rocks.
A lot of rocks.
A lot of significant stones out there to look at. And so going to look at another rock isn't a big highlight. We've seen a lot of rocks.
Right.
Meaning like ancient cities and the pyramids, all kinds of beautiful, amazing, significant rocks, stones, man-made objects, really cool. It's an absolute privilege to get to experience the places and see the things that I've seen.
It's wonderful.
Be in the pyramids.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It is. I bet it is.
The ark is definitely the highlight of all of it.
Yeah.
And so we get in a tractor, and this is fun. It's kind of like a hayride without the hay, so that's not so much fun. And so you're
especially when it's hailing.
Yes,
Things are coming down.
It's raining. It's hailing. This is not a road. This is a field. This is a mountainous field, and people actually there's still shepherds up there, and so there's shepherds on the fields. And so it's an interesting mixture of experiences. And so we go up to what they first called the landing spot, where the ark originally stopped. And over years, because the ark stopped in a mudslide, the ark actually came down the hill a little bit, or down the mountainside.
Wow.
And so you can kind of imagine where it is. From there, you can see a rock formation up on the top, where the very, very first settling after the ark was.
Amazing.
And there are still remnants of foundations there, possibly Noah and his family's homes that they first lived in after they exited the ark. You can't go there today because it's in the safe zone between Iraq and Turkey.
Yes.
So you can't go there.
Well, you'd mentioned something about that exact spot, that there was even carvings on the wall and paintings of...
Yeah, there are carvings of exotic animals on the wall there that shouldn't be there.
Right.
Because you don't have giraffes there.
Not in the mountains.
No, but there are carvings of giraffes up there on that cliff, which is another proof that, of course, giraffes were there. How would you get
images of animals that weren't supposed to be there.
Right.
That from that long ago. So after we were at the landing spot, beautiful. It's kind of this valley place up in the hills and the top of the mountain. You can look down and you can see the ark, and you can see the valley where civilization started again. And you can see Mount Ararat just across from the valley.
It's beautiful.
Absolutely fantastic. And there's a sense of peace and serenity.
There is.
And then our guide says, "Now we're going to go over here, a little bit to the side." And we're a little tired because we've already been filming and working. And it was like one more thing to say. Okay, well, let's go see it. Since we're here, let's go see it. And he says, "This is the altar stone."
Wow.
And we were very skeptic.
I bet.
You come to the ark already with a sense of, can I really say this is the ark?
Oh, I was so skeptical when we first started this journey.
It was like, you really, because then you tell people stories. I visited the ark, and they said, "But how do you know it's the ark?"
Right.
You just said you visited the ark, and then you got to prove that it's actually the ark.
Yep.
Which it fits all the biblical measurements.
It really
it's the
does.
only boat in a mountain, so it's okay.
So it's okay.
Yeah. And there are a lot of other proofs that it's actually man-made, and the wonderful
There are.
research that's been done. Some
right.
is published, some is still not published.
Yep.
So there's more to be published. And now the Turkish government and the intelligentsia of Turkey is recognizing the ark, which is big deal.
Let me make one comment about that. I've had a lot of blowback to where people say, that's been proven false, that's not right, the ark's over here, the ark's over there. And when we were there, we drove by different places that actually were sites that would take people on excursions or to different places. And one of the things we discovered is many people that claim this is not the ark is because they're so heavily funded to be on Mount Ararat or other places that if they even a little bit admit that this is the ark, the one we're talking about, the Darupanir site,
Yes.
that they will lose all their funding. We're talking millions of dollars on the line. So that's a motivator.
Yeah, people are motivated to take you up on a mountain hike that's going to cost a lot of money. And they're going to say, "Let's go look for the ark."
Right.
And in most cases, they bring you to something that they actually planted.
It's true. One definitely
And then
got
you
caught.
come home with, a sense of discovery.
Yeah.
When actually you can just drive to the ark.
It's true.
There's no need to get all this expensive gear.
It's true.
You just drive to it. It's right there. There's a visitor's site.
After a few border checks, yes, you can drive to the ark.
Yeah, it's
After they look at you a little bit, you can drive to the
you
ark.
can drive to the ark. Yeah. And so we're up there at the landing spot, and then our guide says, "Let's go look at the altar stone." There's already a sense of, how sure are we that this is the ark?
Yeah.
And how sure are we that this can actually be considered an altar stone? How do
Right.
you know that this is the altar stone?
Yes.
But when we got to the stone, you can actually see that there's a man-made, you can see, instruments were used to cut out a place of sacrifice.
Wow.
And it fits, where the ark was. It just makes sense that this would have been it. It kind of stands out from everything around it.
It does.
And when you're there, whether it is the stone or not, that we don't have to argue whether that is the stone or not.
Right.
It could not be. But it symbolizes the very first sacrifice made, the very first act of worship when Noah and his family got out of the ark.
Yes.
And if this is the place, and perhaps it's not, perhaps it was another stone that was located
Perhaps.
very close there.
Perhaps.
But that doesn't really matter.
It's still the area.
It's still the area, and you're there, and then all of a sudden you realize this is where Noah first saw the rainbow.
Right.
This is where God said, "Go be fruitful and multiply."
Man.
This is where God said, "I will no longer destroy the world with a flood." And you're like, wow, this is a special place.
Yeah.
And I got stuck.
Pastor Paul, when you were here last, I had not been there. And it was you talking about that exact place and the way it touched you. And I felt this presence of God when you were talking about it then. So I had the privilege of going with you, and of course, Rick and Denise and everybody. And as we were going through a small village, and you said, "Joseph, this very well could be the oldest village in the world."
Oh, yeah. The oldest village in the world. And not far from there, the oldest cemetery in the world.
The oldest cemetery.
Yeah, amazing places.
And when we got to that stone that you're talking about, the tractor got stuck, all these things happened. And I walked over there, and it was when I stood with you, and you see some of that in the video, that's when it hit me, because I heard you talking about it, and the revelation came to me. And you talked about this is where the rainbow began. This is where God started over, and that's where we are right now.
Yeah. Oh, it's just an amazing place, and a sense of God's faithfulness and His covenant, and that's kind of where our story begins.
Yes,
because everything pre-flood, meaning the creation and it's the fall. That's a long time ago.
it is. And Pastor Paul, here's something, and if you don't mind, I want to jump into this too, because we've been there, we've seen this, and there's so many things that I just really believe this is Noah's Ark. After seeing it all, seeing all the other people trying to refute it, say, oh, it's a geological structure, just like everything else around there. When you're there and you look for the matching geological structures, the ones people say are there, they're not there. There's one structure, and it stands out from all the rest for miles and miles. That being said, what it gave me a sense of is the earth has a history we may not fully understand that coincides with the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
That goes along with the Bible. And this is something I want to ask you about.
Hold on. I know where you're going. I know this is fun. But first about the...
Okay, Pastor Paul.
One more thing about the altar stone.
Okay, come on.
And I have a question for you.
Okay.
This is a fun question.
All right, sir.
I don't know if we've talked about this or
Well,
not.
come on, Pastor Paul.
Okay. So when we're at the altar stone, the third time we were there, right? It was with you and Heather, and it was fun. Somebody recently asked me about our trip.
Oh.
I said, well, the first time we went, it was a real small team.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know how difficult it would be. We didn't know what it would take. And so it was a small team. Next time I was there, I drove there with my wife. It was part of our wedding anniversary vacation. So that was fun. And then the next time we went, because the first time, all the wives wanted to go.
Yes.
And my father said, no wives. We don't know how difficult this is going to be. Next time around, all the wives got to go. Meaning I had to help my mother. I am 41 years old. My mother is 30 years older than me. I had to help my mother climb up the mountain.
She was amazing.
Awesome.
Amazing what she did.
Awesome. So it was not easy.
No.
But everybody did it. It was fun, and it was a group trip, a home group on tour. And so we got to see a rainbow.
Yeah.
So the first time, no rainbow. Second time, no rainbow. Third time, we got to see a rainbow. And that was like so cool. You're at Noah's Ark, and you get to see a rainbow. And then all of a sudden I realized people had never seen rain before Noah's Ark. And then the flood happens. So rain would have meant destruction.
Yeah.
Immediately. It would have meant destruction. Now, when we see rain, we think, wonderful. Rain is a blessing.
Yes.
I mean, immediately, rain is a blessing. Rain is good. It means the crops will grow. It means we'll have water. I mean, rain is a blessing. But to them, rain would have been horrifying. And then God gives them rainbow and says, don't worry. Fear not. This is a sign of my protection.
That's amazing.
And he added the rainbow to give them that sense of fear not, don't worry. If it rains, it's not going to flood again.
Right.
This is a good thing now. And that would have been so comforting to them for years and years. And we read about it in Genesis. I think it's Genesis chapter 9. We read about that in Genesis chapter, but it doesn't seem to mean anything.
Right.
Yes, the rainbow is a gift from God, and that's just kind of where, the Bible story ends. But when you think about it, this is bigger than just, wow, a rainbow.
Right.
Something beautiful.
Absolutely.
This is a sign of God's protection, His faithfulness. Fear not. It's just changes the whole meaning of that.
You said several good things on this journey we were on. So not only do we stand at the altar of Noah where he possibly saw the rainbow, we saw the carving in the rock where the blood was let and all that, but you made a statement that really stuck with me when we were there. You said, God didn't just make this, as you said, for the people, although the catastrophic events, it would be like nuclear blasts going off with the water exploding on the scene, and the animals were traumatized, but the people were traumatized. Yes, the rainbow brought comfort, just like you're saying, but you said something really powerful. You said God also did the rainbow to remind himself.
Yes, that's what it says in the Bible.
I thought that was great.
It's a reminder for God himself. And so, and that's brings up a whole different subject of our worship and of what our worship and our offerings do. We are to worship God, but our offerings are a scent that goes up into the heavens. And so there are so many things that we do here in the physical world that happen simultaneously in the spiritual world.
That's so good, Pastor Paul.
And so God putting a reminder in the heavens for himself, we get to see something that God did for himself. That's really cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah.
Pastor Paul, the ark was first seen by villagers in 1948, the same year that Israel basically appeared back on the scene as a nation. They were recreated as a nation. That happened. Do you believe the fact that we're emphasizing this or seeing it again in our culture right now, it's just got an emphasis on it. Do you believe that's prophetic or a sign?
Most people who do research around the ark, first person I heard say this was Ron Wyatt.
Wow.
And several other people since then have said this, and my father believes this, that there's a timing involved in the ark being rediscovered. It's like God saying, wait a minute, these stories are real, pay attention.
Right.
It's like a big red flag.
It is.
Pay attention. If it's going to be like it was before the flood, then what does that mean? And why are we supposed to pay attention to this now? There's something significant about the timing of all of this happening. And so, yes, I do think there's significance in that.
Too.
What is the significance for us? And how does that relate? I think that, it's going to relate to each of us differently.
Yes.
All right.
Well,
So I have a question for you.
please, come on, Pastor Paul.
All right. So Genesis chapter 10, we get the Tower of Babel, record of the Tower of Babel.
Uh-huh.
And the way it's written in the Bible, it looks like eventually everyone ended up somewhere in the middle of Iran at the Tower of Babel.
Yes.
And it looks like, when you read the story, it looks like that's where everybody was.
Yeah.
But historically, that's not true.
Yeah.
People were already living 1,000 miles this way, 1,000 miles over there. So we have cities that date back to the Tower of Babel.
Oh, that's fun.
That were already, people were already living there.
Yep.
Okay. So then the Tower of Babel event happens. And of course, the Tower of Babel was the center of civilization at that moment. That is, that's biblically true. That is archaeologically true. So even if there were people that relocated to other places, the center of civilization was there. That's where the events were happening. And so then, God mixes the languages.
Yep.
And everybody gets confused. What happened to the people who weren't at the Tower of Babel?
Well, that's a really difficult question. I don't know. I think the bottom line is they were in the Valley of Shinar. They built this huge thing. I believe it was the epicenter of society. I believe that there was something that happened. Now, I could speculate, and all I can do is speculate. And my speculation is that they built the Tower of Babel in Genesis 11 to be a portal to the realm of the unseen, to bring things in and out, just like they're trying to do at places like CERN, all that stuff today. I believe it's possible that when this happened, it triggered a ripple effect through the whole earth that changed all the languages from the tower out. Can't prove it. That's just me
I just think it's fun.
making stuff up.
I love it. CERN. So you're talking about the collider.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, I did a little bit of research on that.
Oh, I
That's
bet
a
you
fun
did.
subject.
It is, Pastor Paul. So speaking of fun subjects, there's something that I really would like to ask you because you're a wealth of knowledge, and I actually really enjoy our conversations because when I get into historical things, you have that same gene your father has to go out and see the world and examine things. You're like Indiana Jones. You really are. And so one place you went that I find fascinating is a place called Gobekli Tepe. Now, this is more recently coming in the news. There's a guy named Graham Hancock that made this place famous in popular culture and through his writings. There's other people that have talked about it. You see it on everything from Joe Rogan podcast to other places, but you've been there. And, we could get into some of the minutia around, the WEF or the World Economic Forum getting involved with it.
That's very interesting.
It's fascinating because I believe they're trying to maybe hide history. But here's the bottom line. You've been there. And the argument is, and we don't need to solve this argument today, but the argument for many people say the earth is only 6,000 years old, maybe 10, And the other side of the argument is, well, the earth could be millions or billions of years old. The answer is still out there. But the bottom line is, you went to Gobekli Tepe. What did you find? What did you see? Can we put it on the screen, Elijah?
Okay, so what is Gobekli Tepe? It is a Stonehenge type place
Yes.
that predates the flood, and possibly
Fascinating.
predates the creation of Adam.
Wow.
And what we would consider contemporary civilization.
Yeah,
So it raises questions.
it does.
It raises a lot of questions, and some people talk about the existence of a pre-Adamite civilization, and there are hints to that in the Bible and other biblical writings,
Yes.
and there are hints to that in archaeology.
Yeah.
And Gobekli Tepe is one of the major points, proofs to look at,
Yeah.
to say that there was something that happened, the land before time. There was an old movie.
Yeah, I know that movie. Come on, the dinosaurs.
Yes, the dinosaurs.
Petrie. I know what you're talking about.
So it's one of the places that you want to look at and say, something was going on that we know very little about.
Yes.
Now, why is Gobekli Tepe special? Because there are other places that point to unexplainable things.
Yes.
Including massive ancient roads and other structures that seem to be have foundations that were much older than what they were actually built on.
Interesting.
And, so you get into all kinds of interesting theories. But Gobekli Tepe is interesting because the carbon dating works. So carbon. Now I'm not a carbon dating specialist.
Yeah.
But there is a certain point where carbon dating works.
Yeah.
And then there's a certain point after which carbon dating is very theory.
Right.
Right. And so when you date this site to 12,000 years BC, the carbon dating is probably right.
Yeah.
Now, when you carbon date things 40,000 years ago, I have questions about that.
Yeah.
And we really don't know how old the Earth is, and so
Right.
there are a lot of open questions there.
There are.
But when you go to Gobekli Tepe and you say 12,000 years ago, some say 11,500 years ago. Some say that there are more sites there that date back even further. So you're definitely pre-Adam.
And as I understand it, there's only a very small percentage of this that's been excavated.
Yes, yeah. You're talking about a whole area where people lived.
12,000 years.
Yes.
Man,
So that raises questions.
it does.
And because the site and the sites around it, it seems like they were built on and developed. So it looks like there was intent for, and if you believe the numbers, it looks like there was intent for around 3,000 years to keep this site running. So it was built on and built on and built on.
3,000 years.
Oh, a long time. And so if this place was, it messes up all of our bronze history timeline, because they were using technologies to build this Stonehenge type facility way before we were supposed to have the instruments and the technology to do it.
Wow.
Also meaning that there was a rediscovery of technologies. So that's kind of
That's
interesting too.
fascinating. I mean, that statement right there is fascinating.
Yeah, so we're talking about technology pre-Adam, and then the earth was void and without form, and then we're talking about a rediscovery or a rebirth of everything after the earth was void and without form. So some say that this speaks to some type of catastrophic event, and the purpose of maintaining it for a long time was to warn people that something catastrophic could happen again in the future. So maybe there was some kind of asteroid, that fell on the Earth that they impressed them enough to build and warn.
Wow.
That's one of the ideas. It's very interesting that the animals that are carved on the stone columns,
These columns here.
they're recognizable. You look at some of these animals and you think, I think that's an alligator.
Yeah.
Or that looks like a hippopotamus. That looks like a fox. You can kind of recognize that, which also puts art and pictographs way before anything that we're supposed to have. So it messes up with your brain a little bit.
Yep.
What do you do with that?
Yeah.
Well, you just kind of set it aside. And you say, maybe someday I'll understand.
Maybe someday I'll understand.
Yeah.
Right now we read the Bible. We believe the whole Bible.
Yes.
We get into that. One thing that I do find interesting, and of course this is all speculation. We can't land here. But Pastor Paul, I know that you have seen these things, and that's why I like asking these questions. Mm-hmm. It's fascinating to me that this site right here, now it has a cover over it. There's a lot happening around it. But the interesting thing is the World Economic Forum has, I don't know if it purchased the site, but it's taken over the administration of it. And they're not allowing any more excavation to happen, maybe only in a little segment here and there, but they're not allowing widespread excavation there. And the comment they made right on their website, the World Economic website, it says they want to save this and preserve it for future generations to discover, meaning we're putting an abrupt halt on it right now so somebody down the road can find it. And I speculate that they're probably trying to hide something that would prove something that would lean towards the biblical narrative or something they don't want discovered.
Well, when you look at things, we like to find difficult answers to simple things, and so it's often the simplest answer that is the correct one.
Right.
The first thing that you come up with is usually probably the right one.
Yeah.
And then you complicate things.
Pastor Paul, ladies and gentlemen, I love it.
And so they're not just this site; there are other sites that people are overcomplicating. They're making the history so difficult.
Right.
And if you just look at the simple facts, the obvious things, then you end up with a pretty clean story.
Yeah.
If you begin to complicate them, then this one doesn't match and that one doesn't match, and I think part of that is intentional, hiding history, and then not allowing history to be rediscovered.
Yeah.
And for some places there are reasons for things not to be excavated, like for instance the Ark. Politically, it's a very difficult area.
It is.
And if they do any excavation near the Ark, they're going to end up with political problems.
Yep.
Because over the past 100 years and over the past thousands of years, borders and nations have moved around, and so you're going to end up with who does this land actually belong to?
Right.
And then you have ultra right Christians that say only Mount Ararat.
Right.
You have ultra conservative Muslims that say only this certain mountain.
Right.
But even if you put the two texts together, the spot matches
Perfectly.
But you end up with conflict.
It even matches the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yes.
It matches all these stories. And so when your father first brought it up to me and he said, we've discovered this is the site of Noah's Ark, I thought, no, I've seen so many programs on this. I've studied, I've heard all the voices. But after looking at the data and more data and more data, and if you take money out of the equation, just take who's profiting off what out of the equation, I'll tell you what, there's nothing that has the evidence to the level that this place has it. Now people say, why don't you just excavate it? Well, you just explained that. You can't.
It's not about money. And it's not about how difficult it would be because it's on a mudslide. And it's not about that.
Right.
It's about the other issues.
Yep.
And
geopolitical issues.
Yeah, and if you start researching this, and if you start researching this, and you get to a certain point where, wait a minute, we need to stop. Because it's going to break our brains. and so everybody just puts a stop on it until there's a solution.
That's good.
Someone finds a solution to some type of political issue that allows, political, historical issue, sometimes the religious issue. You have to find this key to this solution, and once that's kind of allowed, then discovery continues. But I think there are a lot of things that you have to do a lot of reading on.
Oh, yeah.
And I highly recommend, talk about places that you've done research on.
That's good.
Visit places.
That's right.
Because when you visit them, you're like, wait a minute, what I read online is not true.
That's right.
It doesn't match up.
That's right.
And so there's a lot of discernment in that too, because you can't visit every place that you want to visit.
No. But Pastor Paul, I believe that we're in a convergence of time. I believe the Lord is revealing these things. I think it's very good. And I just really want to thank you for your insights, for being here, for helping me walk through some of this stuff. Because, I also admire you. Here's a reason. You speak 2 languages and you preach all the time in Russian. You're working in Russian, and then you come over here and you're speaking in English, which you do very, very well, by the way. but I'm just really impressed with what God has done through you and your ministry. And I just want to say thank you for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you.
I think if we can, I'd like to do a couple more programs with you.
Let's do it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let me look right at everybody today. Look right at you. Father, I just begin to bless everybody that is a part of this. I begin to speak peace, victory, and I just say anything that was a revelatory word of knowledge out of this, for anybody who's listening, I pray that it just begins to speak to you in Jesus' name. And Lord, I bless every viewer, every person on this broadcast right now. And I just speak the eyes of their heart be opened, a discerning of spirits would come upon them, and that you'd begin to walk in the fullness of what God has for you. Now, let me say a couple quick things about this. The things we're talking about they're like a now word, and we're navigating it, walking through the whole process. And I also want to say a huge thank you to the partners that make these type of programs available. I'm so grateful to you. If you want to join our partner family, please go to josephz.com. And we're going to continue with Pastor Paul in a few more broadcasts here that you'll be seeing very soon. So praise God. I'm so glad he's been with us. And I just want to say, please repost this, share this everywhere. Remember, even on a bad day, you're anointed to be the very best there is. God is working in your life. If you would, please watch this. I want to tell you about an amazing opportunity that has just been presented to us. We've had a supernatural door of opportunity open for us. Only God could do what is happening for this ministry right now. And it is involving television, network television, satellite television, going all over the world. Now, there's a lot in store for this, but let me explain. This is a word God's given us to reach 1 billion people for the gospel. And I feel an urgency for this coming year to advance and go forward because of the uniqueness of what God has spoken in this ministry and through this ministry in media. And here's what we have to do. To accomplish this, we not only have to buy the airtime, but we have to build out a call center and finish this building. And we are in the middle of it right now, but the timeline has just been sped up to fall time so we can be ready for the first of the year when we're going to begin to launch out in television in a monumental way. Now, we've had an opportunity that is both fiscally responsible and financially amazing, the way God has done this for us. And we have to take opportunity right now with it because it won't last long. So here's what I'm asking you. Would you consider supporting us? Helping us build out the call center, helping us finish off this building, and helping us with the budget of airtime. And it is going to be a monumental thing, and the Lord has given us favor, and I can't wait to tell you more and more about it. But if you would consider partnering today over this, I know we can hit this target, I know we can walk through the door, and I know we can raise up 1 million to go win 1 billion. And I'm telling you, this is a God moment. It's a now word. And I'm asking you if you consider partnering with us over it. Maybe you want to become a partner, or if you are a partner, maybe you'd consider increasing your partnership today or giving a one-time offering. This is an amazing open door for this ministry and this broadcast. Everything we've prayed about, everything the Lord has told us to do is now coming to this monumental moment. Next year, we're going to reach the masses like never before, but we need your help. Please consider going to josephz.com right now and supporting this